when you walk past a bakery, it is almost never the neon sign in the window that actually gets your attention.
Right, it's the smell or the samples.
Exactly. It's the person standing at the door, handing out a warm piece of sourdough. You taste it, you trust the quality, and then suddenly you are walking out with 3 whole loaves.
Yeah, that try before you buy strategy works so beautifully because it just entirely bypasses our natural skepticism. Like, we don't want to be persuaded by some loud sales pitch. We want to sample the goods and just decide for ourselves.
Which is exactly what we are applying to today's topic. We are looking at why digital educators, so that means your course sellers, people doing one-on-one coaching, cohort instructors, why all of them need to prioritize video podcasts.
Right, and we're not just doing generic advice here. We are looking at the actual real-world mechanics, how these audio and video formats create a repeatable marketing supply chain.
A marketing supply chain, which, I mean, that sounds incredibly corporate.
It does sound a bit stuffy, yeah. But it really just means building a predictable, automated process. Your raw material is a recorded conversation, and that gets systematically refined into different assets, like social clips, newsletters, and it consistently delivers new clients without you having to manually hunt for them every single day.
Let's actually look at how that works to fix a really common bottleneck, like having a super high landing page bounce rate.
Yeah.
So in our first case study, we have Lindy Ware.
Yeah, Lindy Ware.
Right. She sells a pre-recorded personal branding course. And she was heavily reliant on paid ads. But people were clicking the ad, landing on her page, and then just immediately leaving.
Because the missing ingredient there is familiarity. I mean, when cold traffic hits a sales page, they are just reading text from a total stranger.
Right.
But once Lindy Ware launched these short solo podcast episodes where she was just breaking down content strategy, that dynamic completely shifted.
And the numbers on this are wild. Her course waitlist tripled in just 90 days.
Yeah, it's huge.
And her listeners converted at 3 times the rate of cold traffic. But the mechanics of how that actually happens are what really stand out to me. Like, why does hearing a voice for 10 minutes change a cold lead into someone ready to buy?
Well, audio transmits these micro signals of competence. You hear a person's pacing, their tone, their confidence in the subject matter. It establishes what we call a parasocial relationship.
Okay.
So by the time listeners reach Lindy Ware's checkout page, they really weren't taking a risk on a stranger anymore. They were buying from a mentor they already felt connected to.
That makes total sense for a lower friction purchase like a pre-recorded course. But the psychological barrier has to be much higher when someone is buying your actual time, right?
No, absolutely.
So let's look at Devin. He's a one-on-one mindset coach. His direct messages were completely packed with inquiries, but his actual discovery calls were totally empty.
Yeah, he was essentially trapped doing manual labor in his inbox.
Okay.
He was constantly explaining his foundational concepts to people who just weren't ready to commit.
Right, so he started recording these bite-sized episodes, sharing quick rethinking exercises, and his discovery call conversions went from 22% to 68%.
Which is a massive jump.
It is. But here's where I want to push back on this strategy a bit. If he is giving away his core coaching exercises for free on a public podcast, shouldn't that decrease his bookings? Like, why pay for coaching if you already have the exercises?
I get why you'd think that, but mindset coaching isn't about hoarding secret information, It's about guided application. So the podcast acts as a behavioral filter.
Oh, interesting.
When listeners try his free exercises and realize they actually work, they actively want Devin's help to go deeper. It filters out the tire kickers and brings in clients who already align with his specific methods. They basically show up to the call pre-coached.
Okay, I see the value in that. Though I have to say, managing a podcast while running a full-time coaching business sounds like a fast track to absolute burnout.
Oh, for sure. It is a lot of work.
Yeah. Which is why, to make this supply chain function, you clearly need infrastructure. That's where a partner like Tim Africa steps in to handle the entire repurposing and production workflow. That way the educator can just turn on the mic and teach.
And that back-end infrastructure becomes even more crucial when you start scaling up, like with Tabiso.
Right, our cohort educator.
Exactly. He runs a 6-week coding boot camp. And moving from one-on-one coaching to group cohorts introduces entirely new friction points.
Because you have nervous students who, they don't know what to expect from a group dynamic. Plus, you have investors and donors that you need to keep happy.
Right. So to solve that dual problem, Tabiso started a narrative-style podcast where he just interviewed his past graduates.
And the outcome there was massive. He landed 2 new funding sponsors who had only heard a couple of episodes.
Just from the podcast.
Yeah, alongside a 30% jump in first-time learner signups, the podcast served 2 distinct audiences. It gave anxious students social proof, and it gave investors really transparent, qualitative reporting on where their money was actually going.
But to pull any of this off, we have to talk about distribution. Because the biggest trap educators fall into is treating a podcast like it's just an audio project.
Rather than a distribution engine.
Exactly. One video episode needs to be chopped into vertical clips, a newsletter, a blog post, and clean audio.
And you have to measure it properly, too. You need a performance marketing layer, meaning, moving past vanity metrics like downloads or likes.
Yeah, likes don't pay the bills.
Right. You need an analytics dashboard tracking the data that actually matters, like how many listeners are clicking links, joining wait lists, and booking calls.
Because that connects your content directly to measurable revenue.
Exactly. And if you want to set up your own video podcast series and get all that infrastructure in place, you should definitely connect to Tim Africa for podcast production and marketing at www.tim.africa.
To kind of wrap this up, I think you really have to consider where the internet is heading right now. As AI makes it infinitely easier to just instantly generate generic text and sales pages, written content is rapidly losing its trust value.
Which means very soon, your actual voice and your face on video might be the absolute only unfakeable proof of expertise you have left.
Yeah, that's a very real possibility.
So the question is, are you building that library of trust now, or are you waiting until text means nothing at all?
10 pictures, here we go. Ideas fast, project flow. Catch the vibe, catch the spark. Light it up, ignite the dark. 10 pictures, with a bigger idea, switches. Podcasters, trends in the marketing riches. Plug it in, turn it loud. Build your brand, make it proud. Pitch it high, pitch it sweet. Performance game, can't be beat. Take pictures with a big idea, switch.